Hare Krishna, welcome back to Sankirtanon, your hub for captivating Sankirtan stories, practical tips and tricks, and boundless inspiration from around the globe. Powered by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust and devotees like you, Sankirtanon is created to support the Sankirtan movement globally and keep the transcendental sound vibrations going.
Every week, we have an episode that helps you connect with Srila Prabhupada's books by inspiring you to both read and distribute them. So let's get to it.
Hare Krishna, welcome to Sankirtan On. I'm your host for today, Nikunja Vasini Devidasi. Thank you for joining us for another exciting and inspiring episode. Today's guest is someone very humble. We had to dig a little bit to get information on their magnanimous efforts in driving book distribution in Europe. Special thank you to His Grace Gauranga Prem Prabhu and His Grace Achyuta Kesha Prabhu for assisting me in obtaining information and wording this introduction. A well-renowned Sankirtan devotee, known for his kirtans, harinams, scholarliness in shastras, dry wit, talented drama performances, humility, and his caring and compassionate nature, he joined ISKCON in London and was initiated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in 1972. Last year, inspiring devotees in France to distribute 1008 Bhagavad Gitas on Gita Jayanti, breaking the previous record for the most Bhagavad Gitas distributed in a day, and 8,000 Bhagavad Gitas distributed during the Prabhupada Marathon in December. Leading by example, as I have seen him do from the day of meeting him, in every aspect of impeccable character, during the book marathon, he would personally drive devotees in a manual car to the train station for book distribution. He himself took it upon himself that no matter where he was, he had to go out for books every day during the marathon. Most days he would be the first to go out and the last to come back after sunset. He has also personally carried books in his luggage from Vrindavan, at times to cut down on transportation costs. During the Prabhupada Marathon in Paris, he has been known to purchase hotel rooms for Sankirtan devotees in need from his own pocket and even arranged with attention every single necessary detail to facilitate Sankirtan in the winter. He has been the driving force and encouragement behind my own efforts in book distribution. With my humble obeisances and heartfelt gratitude, please join me in welcoming an inspirational and ecstatic Sankirtan leader and exalted devotee, His Holiness Janananda Goswami Maharaj. Thank you so much for taking the time for doing this podcast with us.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll dive into the questions. I know in the years following your sannyas initiation, we heard that you were known by some devotees as Harinamacharya or Harinam Swami. So what inspired you to focus on book distribution and encourage other devotees to take part when you began your focus on the French ISKCON projects?
Hare Krishna. Well, thank you for inviting me to speak a few words. And well, Srila Prabhupada, whatever we're doing in our movement, and Srila Prabhupada's sincere followers, I definitely are inspiration. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namai. Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pacharine Nevasesa Sindhivadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. Om Jnana Timanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Shvapadantikam. Well, Nikunja Sini, thank you for the question. I have no, I'll just fill in a little bit. Since the day I joined Prabhupada's family, they've tolerated me. And of course, we joined in an era where book distribution in London was not very much going on because there were very few books. So, in fact, we didn't have any books when I first came at all. We only had magazines. And they slowly started coming in. So I never really grew up with, per se, an atmosphere where book distribution was the most prominent activity, it was Harinam Sankirtan. And I wasn't even engaged in that. I was engaged in management almost from the beginning of various activities. But every moment we would go out on Harinam, and everyone knows the history if you've looked at any of the accounts of devotees at that time, how Harinam Sankirtan was like full force, and practically everyone was going out as much as they could, even if they had other services, which was the fact. And book distribution became more and more introduced, and it was there, but it was small. Along with the Harinam magazines were going out, and then some small books came in. Then we had in 72 in England, Bhagavad Gita arrived. Well, they had the small one before, but now the big full version came out in 72, and Krishna books came back online again, or available. And so we were kind of introduced to those. So your question, particularly after taking sannyas, it wasn't, after taking sannyas, I think that's a little bit of an overboard statement. Harinamacharya is certainly not a qualification which I have. We try to serve the acharyas, we try to serve the holy name. So definitely, I mean, again, as I said, I think it's simply the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and other Vaishnavas. I've always had a close alignment with the performance of more public Harinam, not so much in the temple perhaps as others, but public street. I always liked that. I mean, probably because I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a streety person. But I always like to go out in public and chant Hare Krishna from a long, long time, way before. But it gets around about that time of accepting sannyas or leading up to that. I can't give you an exact ABC answer to that, but I became more and more inspired, and I felt it's the duty of somebody who's at least externally appearing to be a sannyasi to try to emphasize the foundational practice of Lord Chaitanya's movement, which is Nam Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the holy name. The duty of a sannyasi, of course, within our heart of hearts, to cultivate the relationship with Radha and Krishna within the heart. So this is the process by which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made accessible Krishna Prema, and he came for that reason to give everyone the opportunity to awaken Krishna Prema through the congregational chanting of the holy name. It became kind of more and more conviction within my heart, I suppose you could say, although very impotent and not very sort of effective maybe, but I tried to do a little bit in that regards. And more so, I mean, I never divorced myself from the you could say the inseparable relationship between Harinam Sankirtan and book distribution. We always had this understanding, maybe on a very low level, but we always had this understanding that book distribution and Harinam were like inseparable partners. I never liked going on Harinam without books. I never ever did. I mean, we did sometimes, of course, but I never liked it. I never liked that idea because I was convinced that, the two have to be together. We don't give up one to accept the other. We do both. Prabhupada put more emphasis as the years went by in the 70s on the importance of book distribution. There's no doubt about that. At the same time, he didn't say that we shouldn't do Harinam. And I strongly believe that every devotee should experience the absorption in congregational chanting. It's not just something someone else does. I think everyone should really have that experience as well. I'm sure they do, but maybe not as much as they could. But the two programs we always felt went well together, and I still feel they go well together. So we try to combine the two together, and I've always tried to do that, at least make the books available, which is obviously the first, having the books and making them available to foundational needs if we want to distribute books. So Harinam Sankirtan is a great place. I can talk, but I'll try to get back to the point. What caused the transformation or apparent transformation? I wouldn't say it's a transformation as such. It's just maybe a emphasis which came out due to circumstances in some ways, and primarily, I would say, because Srila Prabhupada's inspiration, taking up incompetent, whatever it may be, and I understand, but taking up some kind of responsibility here in France, we always understood from Srila Prabhupada that books are the basis of our movement. Prabhupada's mentioned so many times that, if we distribute books, everything else will come, money will come, everything will come. Of course, we know there's more to it than just distributing books. We're not naive. But, still, it's the foundational activity of our movement. And I always felt, not just because of France or after sannyas, that every activity is connected. Whether we're doing daily worship, whether we're farming, whether we're managing, whatever we're doing, cooking, driving cars, that book distribution is not like the idea of being a specialist and I only drive cars or I only do daily worship. I could never buy into that. I felt that every devotee is a part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement in terms of not just because it's a part of the movement, because it's a part of the mission of the movement, which is inclusive, highly inclusive of the distribution of transcendental knowledge as given to us by Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas in the form of books and the holy name, of course. I always felt that, so I always feel pujaris should also be a book distributor. Cooks should also be a book. It doesn't mean they're going on the street. It means that their mentality, their attitude, and have the opportunity to share the knowledge and to share the literature also, to give them Prabhupada's association. I always encourage that, no matter what service we're doing. A typical example of that is to encourage us to always take a book wherever you go. Even if you're in the kitchen, have a book available. You never know. Have books available. The pujaris, some of the top book distributors in the world used to be pujaris. They would distribute books, especially in India, of course, when people come to the temple and give donations. So there's many ways of looking at it. So it wasn't like sudden transformation. It was just circumstantially. I was in France and there was very, very little, one or two devotees doing a little bit of book distribution. So I felt that this would be Prabhupada's. There are many ways of looking at it, but I could just say from the perspective where I thought I might be able to do a little bit. We can't do what we can't do, at least I can't. Others are more transcendental, they have deeper faith. But I thought I'd try to do something which is pleasing to Prabhupada, beneficial to the French yatra, inspiring to the devotees, and beneficial to the public. And with Prabhupada's own words, it's the foundation of our movement. Prabhupada gave his blood for the publication, didn't distribute writing, publication, distribution of this knowledge through books. So I thought this is at least one way. I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I was probably more bewildered than anyone about the situation in France. But I was convinced that at least this much we can say cannot be a loss. It cannot be wrong to distribute Prabhupada's books. Others may not like the idea, but it's not wrong to an activity in our lives. So seeing the overall situation and of the yatra, we're not going to get into the details, but I thought that this was what Prabhupada would want. And I'm not a big book distributor, I never was. I just try and try to encourage others. So we just kind of put a little bit more emphasis, amongst other things, and we have many other services, but putting more emphasis on book distribution. It was my desire to see at least one full-time book distributor in the French yatra, which didn't exist for decades practically. So I've felt at least let's see, and tried to get a little Sankirtan party together over the years, which by the mercy of Prabhupada and Krishna, something happened. And now we are where we are. We're not increasing, I'm afraid, very much over the last 2 years. We came to a bit of a peak, and it's kind of slowed down a little bit in the last 2 years. Various reasons for that. It's not negative reasons. Other services are more demanding in some cases, and plus we're not distributing so many Arabic books as we were 3 years ago. for various reasons. And we were distributing over 5,000 Arabic books a year, a few years, maybe 7 or 8,000. I haven't got the figures. But that went down. And when we say distributing more books, well, if you count number of actual books, it's not gone down. But if we count book points, it has gone down because there's a system that Arabic books get, Anyway, putting that aside. And then the Bhagavatams came in a few years ago, so that was another big boost. And obviously, in the beginning, when they haven't had the Bhagavatam for 30 years, you got quite a few customers. And it was 30 years, over 30 years, almost 40, I think. No, maybe 30, I can't remember. Over 30 years anyway, between the last time that the French Bhagavatams were printed. So that's quite a long time ago. So there was a big demand amongst the already existing community of devotees, Indians and French or whatever was existing at the time. It wasn't that big, but it was big compared to let's say, what it was a few years before. And so we sold like 200 Bhagavatam sets before we started, basically. So it boosted the apparent, distribution figures quite considerably. So now we have to look for new outlets for distributing. Whole of Europe's like that. Most of the countries are struggling to increase their Bhagavatam distribution. Anyway, I'll talk about that a little later. I mean, I can just go on and on. I don't know where you want to cut me out. So when I try to get a little bit into book distribution, and anyone who's done it, I mean, my God, I talked to one devotee yesterday I'm in London, and he told me he hasn't been on book distribution for a long, long time. He used to be a book distributor. His health was real bad, and he went out yesterday for the first time in donkey's years, and he said, "My God," he said, this is all. I wish I was doing this all the time. This is what I should be doing. He was, he's not a young man, and he's very sick, and a very wonderful devotee in London. And he went out to try to inspire the younger devotees on books here in London, because he's a senior devotee, he's a mentor, and he was so ecstatic going out on the street. And, let's face it, we're not only here to do things, we do want to have a taste in Krishna consciousness. We do want to please Prabhupada. We do want to get off the mental platform, And it's by Krishna's grace that all this can be achieved. So we just have to take that grace and like it or lump it. I tell you frankly, it's not an easy one for me. I'm not like a spontaneous salesman, to say the least. But the reciprocation you get without, we don't get them. Sometimes I go out all day and do night. Sometimes I just do one small book in a whole day. It's not like I'm doing a lot of books. And some days it's different. Every day is different. But it's like the reciprocation you get within the heart. This is book distribution is a relationship. It's not just an activity. It's a relationship with the eternal. So you get the point. It's a relationship with the Lord. It's a relationship with our acharyas, and specifically a relationship with Prabhupada. We're putting our head at the lotus feet of Prabhupada. Please do what you wish with me, Prabhupada. You can make me a success or a failure. You do whatever you like. I'm just your instrument. But I hope that it inspires others. And we're not here to do numbers. We're here to surrender. We're here to play our eternal part. And this is a great opportunity for everyone. We have many times we get people on the street who say, "Can I join you in trying to distribute these books?" And believe it or not, in Paris, I guess it's everywhere like that. Just some young school kid, and they just sit there alongside you. They're distributing books. I don't speak French much, and they're going along side by side trying to distribute books. And it's so inspiring to see others getting a little taste for this, to get a taste for this most charitable, merciful activity. There's nothing compared, nothing nearly. I mean, as I say, to me, Harinama books are inseparable family members. And it's just so amazing to see not on the public, we may not see immediately, but the effect on one's own heart. We're here for a change of heart. And this is Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada's special gift to us, to help us to to experience that change of heart. The pleasure that one gets, we're not asking for that, but the pleasure one gets from actually bringing pleasure to Srila Prabhupada. That's what our goal of life is, to bring pleasure to Prabhupada. It's not to distribute millions of books in of itself. If that brings pleasure to Prabhupada, we'll try. But it's really the mood, the desire to bring pleasure to Srila Prabhupada, which is the life force of any devotee, really. And that's our motive, to bring pleasure to Prabhupada. So I don't know if I've said anything of any use. I've said something. I don't know if it at all approaches that question which you posed, but I think it's related. Is
I
that
think
okay?
you've answered many questions. Thank you so much.
Well, I haven't answered anything really. I mean, I'm just kind of like giving some report of something.
Yeah.
Questions are answered. We do it when it's not, when we actually surrender to doing it, then things are clear. Krishna clears the atmosphere of our consciousness. Consciousness is always cloudy in this connection with this world. And when we hold on to our previous perceptions, it remains cloudy. But when we surrender to the pure desire of the pure devotee, then, Krishna is very pleased and he clears our consciousness to whatever degree is, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly to the degree that we surrender. Okay, well, if you want to push on, I'm still alive, I think.
No, that was a really nice answer. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just adding more onto this mood of compassion and not being stuck with scores. I heard in one of your classes during Kartik month last year that there was a strike going on in France, and there was about 32 pallets, around 20 tons of books waiting for delivery. And you mentioned that while offering a lamp during Kartik, you were considering that you would be more happy for the books to arrive rather than to be freed of sinful reactions. And he wanted that to be more of a prayer so that you guys could start, distributing more books.
I don't
So,
know. Don't get me wrong. Is that the question?
the question is, how do we develop this mood of compassion in ourselves and while performing Sankirtan, so we don't get distracted by,
I know
scores and results?
I'm not the right person to ask here. I'm more interested in passion than compassion. I'm passionately looking to see if my name's on the list, or if France is on the list. I'm a real, let's say, selfishly motivated personality in that sense. But anyway, I'll try to at least approach your question, and by starting with one of the highlights. I would say one of the highlights of our little journey in this Srinit Prabhupada's ISKCON was the printing and the delivery and the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatams in French. We have a long way to go. There's more to do, a lot more. But at least that incident, I suppose it was 3 years ago. I didn't prepare. It's either 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember. But when the Bhagavatam was printed in French, after, as I say, at least a 30-year gap, 1985, 15, yeah, I would say about 36-year gap, probably. 36 years or 37-year gap, like that, between the two printings. So it was a big thing, most of us had kind of, I don't say they'd given up the hope, but one of the exciting things about this was that, all credit to the devotees who are maintaining Prabhupada's BBT, my God. They were trying to keep all the books in print. It's not an easy thing, you haven't got just, English is easy. And it's not as easy, it's not like it's easy either. But all over the world, people are distributing English books. Even in remote countries, there's always a demand for English books. That may not be their language, of course. And in France, I would say about 10% of the books we distribute on the street And amongst the congregation, it's higher because many of our congregation are more English speaking than French. But on the street, at least 10% of the books we distribute are in English. So everywhere is like that almost. With the world globalization or whatever we call it, English people, English speaking people everywhere. So, the demand is easier to keep that language in print always. Many reasons. But individual languages, French is a big language, we know, but approximately, I would say 75% of the Francophone, that means French-speaking world, is hardly distributing books, because we're talking of probably about 300 million people in Africa, and there's literally no book, very, very little book distribution going on there. They're French-speaking. Sometimes I just think, oh, Krishna, if only we could get through there with the French books. I don't know. It's like another topic which would take a big endeavor. But it's such a shame that we're not doing many books amongst I don't know the numbers, but I guess off the top of my head it's around about 300 million, maybe a little less, between 2 and 300 million at least, I'd say, French-speaking people in Africa. And very few books going out to them. So in France, again, very few books were going out. We put the clock back 7 years ago. Maybe one couple of thousand books a year in France itself, but perhaps, I don't have the figures, but it was very little. And there was very rarely they printed any new books. So there was a printing about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a printing. Somehow they got the money together and printed at the BBT, some small books. Now we printed the Bhagavad Gita in French again, after quite a long time. And but money was short. They could only print. They just couldn't afford to print books in France when the books were not getting sold, and there was no money to pay for the printing. So when it came to the Bhagavatam, the BBT was willing to print, since book distribution was on the rise, and kind of convinced we needed a reprint. But they were only willing to print maybe 500 sets, which was very magnanimous in one sense. But I kind of thought, this is not going to work, because it will work, but it will be more work, because already I could see that you could knock out 200 sets at least. And we want to look long-term, prices rocket, we all know how the market is. And I just thought, if only we could print more. And I asked the BBT if they could. They said, no, we can't print unless we can guarantee within 2 years the books are paid for. 2 years, 3 years, I can't remember. But within 2 or 3 years. So it kind of scratched my head. Well, what can we do? And I said, well, only if they're paid for in advance. So we made a bit of a campaign. Actually, we got one grant from the BBT somewhere else, and that helped a bit. But mostly we raised it from individuals, and somehow or other we came up with more than half of the printing cost, I believe, enough to convince the BBT to print 2,000 sets. So they printed 2,000 sets, which of course brought the price of each set down, as well as giving us a nice stock of books for quite a few years. That was the beginning, you could say. And then one thing after another, it took almost 18 months from that moment to the time we actually got the books. COVID had just hit. COVID was in. So I guess it was 4 years. I don't know, something, maybe 4 now. COVID had hit, and everyone knows everything was unsure. There was strikes weren't necessarily the first thing. It was COVID itself, which just delayed everything, the printing, and then there was all kinds of things in Sweden, getting all the manuscripts ready, because they used the old films, and they had to be transformed into some digital form. Many of the films were very old and damaged, and they spent months cleaning them up, and then some were missing, and it was a huge endeavor by the BBT in Sweden. All credit to them, and they worked so hard to get those ready. it was so inspiring. I mean, it was a bit slow. Then there was COVID. Many of them were hit with COVID, setting them back weeks and months. And then there was some horrible kind of environmental, I don't know what you call this. I can't remember. But some dump caught on fire, and for weeks the whole BBT was out of bounds because they were engulfed in poisonous fumes, and so many things were going on. It was a real challenge, to get this done. And it completely reminded me of the challenges Prabhupada underwent in getting out of India or getting the Juhu temple or whatever, one after the next. It was like a reenactment of some of those, seemingly you're up against the wall type of endeavors from beginning to end. And it was quite amazing experience. And you never know what was going to happen next. And then the Suez Canal was closed or something, I can't remember. All kinds of things. When they finally managed to get a printer, then there was all kinds of problems in India with paper because of COVID. They couldn't get the papers. Then they couldn't get the blueprint papers. And one thing after it went on and on and on. I've got a list somewhere, I don't have it with me, of the various step-by-step opportunities. Let's say not obstacles, let's call them opportunities to surrender, one after the next. And it went on like this for about a year. And then finally, in about, I don't know when exactly, I think it was in the middle of the year. Well, I guess it was 4 years ago, about the middle of the year, things seemed ready to go and the printing was going ahead. And then there all kinds of print difficulties, finding a ship to bring them to Europe, and the ship was delayed. And wow, one thing after another. And eventually, after tremendous endeavor all around, the books eventually arrived in Europe. And then we don't get them direct because of the history. They go through another, go through Belgium. And then they couldn't get any transport to get them to France. There was nothing available, it was so difficult. And I guess this was the beginning. This is beginning of Kartik. So I can't remember making that statement, but I think it's more of a general statement. But I was willing to I felt I was willing to sacrifice anything to get those books into France. It meant so much. It was like Prabhupada's heart. He felt like this is how we're going to really please Prabhupada. It was really a big kind of very emotional or something, but very significant event. I actually thought maybe I won't be able to carry on. Maybe I won't be living after this, but if I could just get these books into France, that would be a part of that. That would be at least something useful in this lifetime could be achieved. So eventually they managed to find a lorry, and listen to this one. The lorry the lorry driver was Ukrainian. The truck came from Lithuania, and it came to Belgium. This is how difficult it was to get a transport to pick up these books. And then the guy didn't speak a word of English or a word of French, and we couldn't contact the company. They wouldn't give us his number. The guy was driving around for days trying to find us in France. He just couldn't. So he was phoning his company, and they would, we couldn't make a connection with the driver. I was out in the car driving around all the local areas. 3 or 4 of us were driving around trying to look for a vehicle that might resemble the vehicle it's supposed to be. We're driving all down the lanes and the roads, and he's driving here and there and going this and that. No connection. They wouldn't give us his phone number. And, some, I don't know, Privacy Act or something. I don't know what it was. This went on for a couple of days like this. It was outrageous. And then eventually one early morning, I was driving into the local village because he had the kind of the village, but GPS does not give you directions to New Mayapur. It takes you somewhere else. I'm sorry to say, but that's how it was. So he was completely lost. And then I saw this truck, which was actually him, but I didn't know what the truck looked like. And then he disappeared on the horizon. And about a day later, I was down in the village. It was bucketing down in water, in rain. It was pouring down. And then I saw the truck coming down the hill the opposite way to the roundabout. And we kind of swung around the roundabout. Whoa, whoa, stop, stop. We managed to catch him. And then he followed us back to the temple. It was quite amazing. It was so exciting, I must say. It was really it's a real adventure. So he followed us back with this huge truck. We had about 30 parts of books in there. And then we drove back, and it was pouring down with rain. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was pouring down with rain. We got back to the temple, and the local farmer, very kindly, because they had no forklift on the lorry. So he came over with his forklift tractor in the next door neighbor's farm. And we unloaded all these books in the pouring rain into our brand new warehouse, which the first books to come into the warehouse were the Bhagavatam. It was very ecstatic, an ecstatic experience, I must say. It was just out of this world. It was like a dream. I guess that's that. Hare Krishna. And since then we've been, well, distributing. I think we've distributed about 700 sets in France, something like that. Something like that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
And how was your, sorry?
No, I could go on, but I won't.
No, it's good.
Won't-
I was just going to ask, how was your Vajra Purnima that ended a couple of days back?
It never ends. It never ends. For us, it never ends. It's just a time frame that, Vaisheshika Prabhu was doing the greatest service in Srila Prabhupada's movement, set some time with his team. And for us, it's all year round.
Yeah.
I like to see an all year round figure because, we like to see how many Bhagavatam sets are going out all year round, but whatever.
Mm.
So you were saying about Bhadra Purni?
Yes, was there anything you wanted to share about Francis Bhadra Purnima, this past one that just
Yeah, but
went? Any
yeah, this
stories,
year's Bhadra
Sankirtan stories?
Purni. I remember last year when I was talking to Tridas Prabhu, who's the Sankirtan inspirer in Europe. He's a wonderful disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who's inspiring us all over Europe now. Lives in Italy. There's a wonderful soul. I like to, I remember last year I was talking with him and I said, Tridas Prabhu, I don't know how we're going to distribute so many this year. Vaisheshika Prabhu is pushing, 20% increase, but we've already hit up everybody we know, and it's so difficult. We've tried distributing on the street and, it's against the law in France. They can get quite heavy, if you put a book table up on the street,
Mm,
you're arrested. I mean, if you're lucky, you get fined. It's like
mhm,
2 to 300 euro fine on the spot, and they arrest you. So we do it. We get away with it a lot of the time, but they give you one warning, and if you're there the next time, you're in. You're out or you're
mm,
out, whichever way you look at it. So it's kind of a risky thing. There's some places we can get away with it for some time, but not for long. So so we haven't had much luck trying even to distribute. And even we do put them on the book table, and we do have a book table. I think in 3, 4 years, so maybe we just don't know how to do it. I don't know. It's France is it's an interesting country. It's a little different in reciprocation to some. Every country has its own uniqueness. There's no doubt about that. And
mm,
every country has the people have no. In France, it's a known fact. It's actually published by the French Tourist Office that for foreigners, don't become too disheartened when they say no merci, no thank you, no thank you. They say no thank you before you even speak. As soon as they see you coming to them with a possible question, they say no thank you before you even speak. It's just part of the lifestyle over here. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the local psychology of the people of the country, but we sold, I think, 4 sets in 4 years on the street, which
wow.
not a very high figure. Maybe
But
5.
it's good. Street distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam's not easy.
Well, the devotees of crack we know in America and even in Australia, I saw some young devotees distribute 7 sets in a day or something. I say it can be
Mhm,
done, and it can be done anywhere. They do it in London. It can be done. It's we don't know. I mean, we need some help, I guess. I'm hopeless at these things. I'm not. I have no brain for, I just have some passion, I don't have any brains for these things. I'm stupid. But somehow or another, we haven't broken the ice there, and it'd be nice if somebody who thinks they can break the ice can come and help us break it. But we haven't been very effective in that regard. We did have a group of devotees from Atlanta over here last year. They didn't distribute any sets, though. Maybe they did one. I can't remember. Maybe they did one on the street. I can't remember, but it wasn't much. And we haven't broken the ice as of now. We've had the Kesha Maharaj here. We've had the book distributors from Soho Street here. We haven't broken the ice yet, but it will break eventually. But right now, we haven't broken our heads yet quite on it, but we're still trying. But I remember the first one that went out was to a witch, practicing witch. Yeah, practicing witch. She liked the picture of Lord Nrsingadev, and she bought the whole set based on that. We've had one or two exceptions like that. There's different ways you can do it. We don't usually get very big donations in France. If you get a big donation, maybe sometimes you give the set to someone, or you can do like there's different systems you can have. But I guess you get this everywhere. But trying to give a set of books to people on the street is pretty hard. They even protest about the Bhagavad Gita. It's too big. I can't carry that. And that's a small version, by the way. They really aren't into carrying things, so they say. As I say, I'm not putting up obstacles here. We have to find a way around it. And are not obstacles in one sense. They're just opportunities. We haven't taken them sufficiently yet. That's all. If we're the fortunate ones, we'll find a way through this. Someone will find a way to introduce Bhagavatam more to the general population of France. The book tables at this point of time, in the street at least, public events, you like everywhere, you have to pay and organize it properly, or potentials, although we haven't had much success there as of now. Bookshops are very limited. We're not allowed to put books into institutional places like hospitals, prisons, doctors' clinics, libraries, schools, universities. All these are out of bounds by somehow the policy. Unless they order it on their own account from us, we can't go and push like that at this point of time. Everything's centralized, and there's decisions made by one central body. Nothing's done by individual outlets anymore. So we haven't had much luck there. We had a little bit, but not much. Actually, funnily enough, the prison in Paris, for the Indians in the prison, ordered a Bhagavatam set off of us. That was unusual. Sometimes it's like most of our sales of Bhagavatams are, people we meet who are interested, cultivate them a little bit, and then they buy the set. We have some sponsored sets which have gone to yoga groups, a few other places, Ramakrishna missions, other Hindu missions, things like that. We've had some of them buy, some of them we sponsor, but mostly it's individuals, and mostly amongst their own, persons we've been cultivating mostly. So this year, the first year, we had already sold without even having the books. Actually, we reported by Sheshika's enthusiasm, even that we just got the money in advance. That's another way we raised the money to print the Bhagavatams. We sold 200 sets in advance with no books and no knowledge when the books were coming. This was like a year and a half before they arrived. And we sold 200 sets, full price. So that raised quite a bit of money. And that way we used it to print the books by people paying before they were even printed, by a year before they were printed almost. There's different ways. And that side, I'm a little bit, I have a bit of initiative in that regards, not so much in distribution, but raising money to print them. So we've got a few plans there lined up to try to increase the book distribution in that way. But anyway, that's another thing. And like that. So then the next year we distribute a lot too, because there's a lot of fresh people coming out there, new book distributors. But the last 2 years has been slow compared to the first 2 years. It's been hard. But last year we had a burst. We sell a lot of sets at festivals. I mean, when I say festivals, I mean temple festivals like Janmashtami. You get into the spirit. It's the spirit. It's not so much, the people don't necessarily come up. It's being in the mood. It's being in the mood. It's like Sheshika Prabhu was always in that mood of, you don't say it can be done. It's not like it can't be done. You don't put the obstacles up. You just got to be in the spirit of positivity. And I say that's the real feature of it all. I just when was Bhadrapuni? 2 days ago. It depends which part of the world you're in, but here it was 2 days ago. And, so I left it up to the Sankirtan boys to set the quota this year, So they made a low quota. We made the same quota last year. Last year we did about 115 sets, which is nothing compared to many places, but for us that's something. The years before were bigger because I've already mentioned. But this year they set a quota of 64, not knowing how they're going to do that. And the Sankirtan party themselves, they didn't do it. Maybe they did one or two between them, but some another between everyone else, and keep publicizing it, keep letting everybody know, let them know when that set goes out, keep everyone informed, keep inspiring the devotees to think of ways. Let us know if you know anyone, whatever it is, sponsor a set, whatever it is. We didn't get many sponsored sets, but a few, which we distributed here and there. But mostly they were sold. And like, take for instance, on the Bhadrapuni Day, I went to the Paris temple the day before. There were two people sitting in the temple chanting some Vishnu Sahasranama, some two South Indian ladies, three of them. And they come now and again. I just thought we got to reach at least 64. I mean, somehow or another. So I just quickly spoke to them, and within 10 minutes, they'd taken the Bhagavatam sets, both of them. They both took sets. It's a matter of, it can be done. It's a matter of just making it known. 90% of the time, we don't even think of it or make people known of it. But they took, then so the next day was Bhadra Purnima, and we set up the book table with Bhagavatam table as well. And it was a fun, very few people came to the temple. Usually we have a lot more. But we distributed 7 sets of Bhagavatams there and then. It was like magic. It was magic because we wanted to, and Krishna reciprocated. The desire has to be there. The desire has to be there. Krishna gives or just doesn't give. That's up to him. But the desire has to be there. And he fulfilled that desire, and we went past our quota. And eventually way past it, because some more sets went out by others elsewhere. And I think we went way past 64. I haven't got the final figure yet, but it's over 70 now. So, it's nothing compared to what you're doing in Melbourne or what they're doing in America, or what to speak of India or London. It's like, but still, it's something. And it's really to develop this desire that we want, that, this Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, every practicing devotee knows that this is, in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, describes how this Srimad Bhagavatam, in this age of Kali, the question where have religious principles gone to? This is where they are. The world will only change when it adopts the spirit of Bhagavatam. So, to be a little tiny part of this, we're big or small, what is it? It's just relative. But to be a part of this is the success of our lives. This is what we're here for, to be a part of it. We're not here to do a little bit. That's okay. Everyone can do a little bit. But if we really want to feel the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, this is not a little bit, it's a complete bit. That's our only part, our whole part. It's just to sacrifice our lives for this mission of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada's mission. That's where the real spirit comes in. It's not techniques can be used, but it's really the spirit of our heart. Anyway, I'd just like to encourage everyone to take this on board somewhere in their lives, to be just to be an instrument for this Bhagavatam to be distributed to others. That is compassion. We may not be compassionate, but by assisting the personification of compassion in the form of Srila Prabhupada, then, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, we may eventually develop some genuine compassion. Okay, is that okay?
It's perfect.
And nothing coming from me is perfect, but everything from Prabhupada is perfect. He's given us the perfect goal, the perfect process, perfect everything.
Mhm. So for temples that have less manpower to maintain book distribution alongside regular temple services, what advice do you have for them? Because I think that's the situation there, right?
Engage the woman power. There's usually more women than men who are interested. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but it's often the case. There's more ladies than there are men in many, I don't know, everywhere, not the same. Obviously, in India, is what it is, but in many temples, it's like that. Community, especially the community. I mean, I can only repeat what is obvious, and Vaisheshika Prabhu is a living example of in America, huh? In his temple there. What's that town? What's it called? Near San Francisco.
Silicon Valley.
What's the name of the city near San Francisco he lives? I've forgotten. But anyway, whatever, San Juan or something, I can't remember what it's called. Something like that. But we as far as I know, I've never been there, but as far as I know, most of the books are distributed what we normally term as congregation, Indian congregation. And they're distributing phenomenal numbers of Srila Prabhupada's books. It's incredible. It's just a living example. You don't have to say it's a good idea. It's a living example of what can be done. And this is going on in many places. It's going on in Melbourne too, where you are. And in many other cities all over the world, this is going on. We're not nowhere near as much as you are in France, only a little bit over here, and slowly growing. But we don't have that Indian congregation. It's slowly growing now. We don't have a French congregation. It's slowly growing. There's basically just a very small core of devotees. It's slowly growing, slowly growing. It's going to take a while yet with our limited capacity, our limited sincerity. But in many countries, we have predominantly a large congregation in places like Malaysia, and Australia, and America, and England, and so on. A huge congregation. And say you've got a congregation of 1,000 members. I mean, sincere, somewhat practicing at least. If every one of those 1,000 members would distribute one book a day, how many books would that be? If you got your calculator, 1,000 times 1, how much is that?
1,000.
Oh, that was pretty quick. You messed up. 1,000 times 1 equals 1,000. That would be 1,000 books a day, wouldn't it? It's not that much, really, one book a day. Some will do more. So you say you do 1,000 books a day for 30 days. How many books is that?
30,000.
Well, you're really maybe 31, maybe 28, depends which
Oh,
month.
yes.
But approximately 30,000. How many books is that in a year?
My brain is dead right now.
Come on.
30,000 times 360. No, times 12.
Yeah, times 12, 360,000. I mean,
Yes.
that's another thing. We were taught to add up within a second. That took me about 1 second to calculate that, if that. 360,000 in a year. Now, that's a fair number of books for normal temples. And that can be done. Of course, you may not have that many congregation, obviously, but you have something. If we can somehow or another engage, inspire others. And, one of the things is inspiration comes from inspiration. It's not like a dictionary, looking up in a dictionary, I must become inspired. That's okay. But it really comes from an inspired person. Like Prabhupada inspired us all to do, which we would never have dreamt of doing in our wildest dreams. things to serve Krishna. And same thing with book distribution. I mean, I was just listening to Vishaka Mataji in London, and they're about to Purnim there in the manor, and they congratulating all the community devotees who were assembled there to celebrate. I don't know what figures they did. I watched a bit online. Their achievements in the Bhadra Purnim campaign, and saying how you've done what we would never have thought possible. We never even imagined it would be possible to distribute so many sets of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam some years ago, but now you're doing it. So she was like, congratulating them like that, and encouraging them. So it's quite something. When the conviction is there, when the desire is there, and the attitude, prayerful attitude, dependent attitude is there, there's no limit to what can be done. It's like Mahotsav Prabhu, sometimes you could say, he's a top book distributor in Atlanta, maybe in the world, I don't know, but one of the top book distributors. He said, what do you say? How do you do it? And he said, it's not what you say, it's what you pray. It's our connection with Krishna, our dependence upon Krishna. We're instruments. It can be done. Is that okay?
Yes. And just to close our discussion for today, what message would you have for our youth to inspire them to take part in book distribution?
What group am I talking to?
Like youth worldwide.
Pardon? Worldwide. So it could be
Yes.
anyone, anywhere, wherever we are. Closing message from our discussion today to encourage devotees to take part in book distribution. What would it be? Come to France and help us to distribute books. I do say that sometimes, but we know that that's not realistically possible in most cases. Well, nothing's impossible, but you know what I mean. But you are welcome, and to Lord Chaitanya's ordered us all. I mean, posing message. I don't know. If you want to be happy, I don't know what you want. I mean, we want to please Prabhupada. You want to be happy. You want to help solve the problems of the world. You want to go back to Godhead. You want to get your name up in lights. I mean, I don't know what you all want, but yeah, just take this opportunity. You could just carry wherever you go. Take a small book. Take something with you. Don't go unarmed. The material was not an easy place, that's for sure, especially this particular day and age we're in. It's a pretty tough situation, in many cases, very tough. And take a book with you wherever you go, distributing to someone. You never know. You never know. There's always an opportunity arises if we take that opportunity. I mean, I could talk on attitude, I could talk on other things, but the practical thing to everyone, young, man, old, whoever you are. I mean, I'll give you a little example. This yesterday, I don't mention names, but one family was visiting France, and they had an autistic child, and they were at the airport, at the train station to catch their train when they left. Child's, really challenged. And some or another, there was one devotee there, and took the child, and the child distributed 2 books. There's no disqualification. Everyone's a part. Everyone can take part. I remember when I was in New Zealand, a little girl named Varshana. She was 2 years old. She was so enthusiastic to distribute books. She'd go on the street, distribute books. Even in New Mayapur, the daughter of the temple president there, we're not advising you to do this, by the way. I'm just saying that no one's disqualified. 1.5 years old, she's distributing books in her mother's arms. We have another devotee in France, paralyzed from head to toe. She's in Australia now. Paralyzed from head to toe. What an example of a sincere devotee. She would, she had an electronic wheelchair, so she could kind of push it with her limbs, buttons and things. And she would always go out with books on her lap and talk to people. Ask them for donations, take a book. Everyone can take part. This is Lord Chaitanya's spiritual family. Be a part of the family. It's so wonderful to feel yourself a part of it's the most unifying activity. This is where unity comes in, when we all work together for a common goal. This is unity. We are diverse. Prabhupada desire unity in diversity. You can distribute books accordingly, and devotees like everywhere going around putting them in these library boxes they have in the villages. Sometimes it's not going on now because the devotees who are doing it have gone to move to Mayapur, but it can be done everywhere practically. And believe me, people take them. Everyone can do something, play some part. We're building a bridge to Lanka. Even a spider can take part. Everyone can be a part of that mission. Everyone. We're building a bridge to the spiritual world for people to cross. So everyone can be a part of building that bridge. Take it on board. You don't have to, we're not expecting you to go out in the rain, wind, and snow, -6 degrees, 10 degrees centigrade, with people kicking you or swearing at you, whatever they do in some places where we are. But at least be a part of this. Be a part of this great mission to drown the world, flood the world with transcendental literatures. It's a great mission. And if we're supposed to be missionaries, and it's a movement, so it's meant to go forward. So let's try to be a part of that great endeavor. Huh? It's a wonderful opportunity, but we have to take it, that's all. As they say, you can take a cow to water, but you can't force it to drink. So the opportunity is there, just take it. And believe me, you'll find an opportunity. You will find an opportunity. Krishna will arrange if you sincerely make a little effort. As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Do your best. And you don't have to go up to people even. Somehow or another, you'll meet somebody on the bus or the train, a nice person. You never know. I mean, this is a topic in of itself. Discuss, but carry a book with you and try to be a part of this great mission of Lord Chaitanya. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Book. You can carry a dozen books, you can carry 100 books, whatever you like, but at least carry something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't limit it. There's no limit.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this podcast with us today. I know you have a very busy schedule, so really, really appreciate it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you all. If there is anyone going to listen to this or whatever it is, thank you so much for your association and time and inspiration. Wish you all the best in the world of transcendental book distribution. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental book distribution ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna! Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Sankirtan On. For more resources, visit us at www.distributebooks.com. See you next episode, and remember, carry on, together strong, Sankirtan On!